In the previous saga we got to know the world of the coinless and the powerful villain Lord Drakkon. At the end of this saga, Lord Drakkon traveled to the main universe by accident and was trapped by soldiers. This is the beginning of the Promethea saga starting in Mighty Morphin Power Rangers comic book number 17. Bulk and Skull are doing a filming of their show to report all about the Power Rangers and are explaining that even though many think that no one has seen the Rangers after the event with the Dragonzord, they have actually appeared. They report that, despite this incident, the Rangers have a lot of fans and support. Among these people is Grace Sterling. She is a futuristic entrepreneur who has a company called Promethea, which is dedicated to creating technology, but for now they have been helping to rebuild the city after all the Zord's battles with Rita's monsters. In a TV interview, Grace explains that now that Rita is not attacking the city, it has given Promethea time to focus on all the new developments they have been creating. The Power Rangers saved the world and now Grace wants to make it a better place. We then see that Kimberly and Trini are on another planet. Apparently, they are trying to escape and are carrying something in their hand. This escape is very dangerous as they are being shot at by laser beams, and it is possible that whatever they are carrying in that bag is something very important. Then we see the monsters that are shooting at them, and the leader of these creatures is called Zosma. They are all attacking with everything they have, while the Rangers ask Jason to help them find a way out since he is in the command center and is the one controlling the mission from there. Jason tells them that they must go to the edge of the city for the teleportation to work and asks Alpha 5, who is controlling the Pink Ranger's Zord, to look for them in that part of the city to get them out of there. On Earth are the other Rangers trying to stop a tornado using the Zords, but at the same time they are trying to get all the people out of that place. Jason is also helping them with that mission, so he is trying to run 2 missions at the same time on 2 different planets. Meanwhile, on planet Tarmac 4, Kimberly and Trini tell Jason that that place is like a maze, so they need a way out and Jason gives them instructions on how to get out of there. On Earth, Tommy, Billy, and Zach are still trying to save people from the tornado, but apparently, it's a very complicated mission. Jason asks Billy to tell them the way they can stop the tornado, and he tells the Rangers that they should freeze the air directly in the tornado's path. Zach prepares his Zord since he can freeze the air with it, but it must be anchored firmly to the ground, so the tornado won't blow it away. Jason tries to warn Kimberly and Trini of an explosion, but he is too late, and the Rangers almost lose their lives. Zach begins to feel the strong winds from the tornado and doesn't know how long he can withstand the winds. Jason asks Zach to hold on and at the same time tells Alpha that Kimberly and Trini need an emergency evacuation now. The creatures from planet Tarmac are about to engage the Rangers and Zach keeps trying to freeze the air from the tornado, but the winds are too strong. Jason keeps asking Zach to resist and then gives the order to Alpha to help the Rangers. The Rangers begin to fight the creatures on the planet and at that moment Alpha arrives to help them. Zach was also able to stop the tornado by freezing all the air, and then Kimberly and Trini grabbed onto the pterodactyl to escape. These have been 2 very complicated missions, but the Rangers let Jason know that they are all okay and, in the meantime, he is relieved at the command center. Jason has had to fulfill Zordon's role while he is gone, so this is very stressful for everyone. Now, all the Rangers gather in the command center to talk about the missions and Trini begins to explain what they were doing on that planet. She and Kimberly were in search of Zordon's staff, which the creatures from that other planet had stolen and now the Rangers got it back. Zosma was obviously not happy that something was stolen from him, but the Rangers know that it did not belong to him. Using this staff, Now Saba along with Alpha can bring Zordon back, as the sword has maintained a link to Zordon through the Morphin grid. They needed a physical link to him, and Zordon's genetics are in his staff. Kimberly thought they would be back to normal, but Zack tells her that now that Rita is gone, they've been able to help people instead of having to fight monsters, so that's better than normal. Saba and Alpha congratulate the Rangers on all the good work they've accomplished and ask him to give them time to work on Zordon's return. Now the Rangers have a day off after a long time, and everyone has their own plans. Jason offers them to train in the pocket dimension, but Zack says he has a family matter. Tommy and Billy are going to the gym, and Kimberly and Trini are going to be at home. Jason decides to stay at the command center to keep scanning the news for any dangers the Rangers need, so they all leave, and Jason is left alone. There is a lot of news all over the world, and at the same time Jason also scans Rita's palace on the moon. Apparently, all this work has Jason very stressed, and the other Rangers start to notice. Since Billy and Tommy were in the coinless world, they are now closer and both train hard to the point of exhaustion. Despite this, they both feel that Lord Drakkon and the otherworldly Billy would have tried harder training, so they go back to training again. Kimberly is having a conversation with her mother about the fights she has with her father, and she thinks they can work everything out. Although Kimberly thinks that the problem is very simple to solve, her mother tells her that she can go back to talking to Matthew, and this makes her very angry. Meanwhile, Trini searches through her to-read list and starts reading Grace Sterling's autobiography. At the same time, she is watching TV, but despite all this she is very bored and receives a call from Kimberly to ask her out. The two sit down in the pterodactyl to talk and realize that they are having a very relaxing time. They try to understand the life they lead, as it is difficult to return to normal after having had missions traveling to other planets and other dimensions. They also talk about what is happening to Jason, as Kimberly thinks he is very serious, but Trini feels he has always been that way. Zack returns to the command center and finds Jason asleep, so he advises him to go get some rest. At that moment, they receive an alert about an earthquake in Dubai, and people are afraid that a very famous big building there may collapse. Jason calls the Rangers to get ready to go and help in this earthquake, and then we can see that they use the Megazord and the Dragonzord to hold the building. It is because of these types of situations that Jason has not been able to detach himself from the command center, as he feels that these things can happen at any time. The Rangers celebrate victory for preventing the destruction of the building, but receive a message from Grace Sterling telling them that their downtime is about to end, as she wants to have a very serious conversation with them. Grace Sterling, the owner of Promethea, meets the Rangers as she gets off a helicopter and tells them that she needs to talk something urgent with them. She also says that since she was in Dubai, it occurred to her that she could take the opportunity to talk to them in person since they were in that very place. She then explains to them that there are two airline pilots who got lost near a place that is hidden due to a dense fog, and they have not been able to get communication with them. That strange place does not appear on any map and seems to be invisible to the naked eye. Billy says that the fog is like an illusion to deceive, and then Grace shows them that there are strange creatures in that place, but the Rangers manage to identify that one of those creatures is Finster. This is why Grace wanted to inform the Rangers, as she thinks that this situation is not at the level of the government and the Rangers are the most suitable to take care of everything. After this conversation, the Rangers decide to teleport to this strange place and discover that all the architecture is a combination of the 18th century and the medieval era. Another very peculiar detail is that even though all the architecture is very old, everything looks as if it is new, and this increases the curiosity of the Rangers. Another thing that the Rangers discover is that the place seems to be empty and that it is almost impossible that any other person could reach that place, but they are also sure where Finster must be. Suddenly, two men appear and ask the Rangers if they are also coming to see the Master. The Rangers are not sure what is going on, but they allow the two men to take them to another location so they can find out what is going on. When they arrive at the location, the Rangers can see that there are many people who seem to be waiting for someone, and those same people are surprised by the arrival of the Rangers. At that moment, Zack tells the people that they promised to help them, but Finster interrupts him saying that his villagers don't need any help because they are already perfect. After this, Finster welcomes the Rangers and tells them that he assumes they are here because of the Promethea pilots. The Rangers ask Finster about where Rita is, but he tells them that he has no idea where she is and now, he has some time to focus on his own art. At that point, the people in that place start to transform into putty patrollers, and apparently this is the art Finster was referring to. The Rangers begin to fight, but quickly realize that there are too many enemies, and they have to find a way to destroy many at the same time, so they decide to unite all the weapons to get the power cannon. This is an epic moment. The Rangers fire this great power and manage to destroy many enemies at the same time. There are a lot of putty patrollers blowing up everywhere, but Finster still has another plan up his sleeve. The two men who have been looking for the Rangers are actually two monsters in the shape of an armadillo and a boar. These two monsters go to join the fight, but Tommy tells Jason that they both need to get into the castle to look for the pilots, and Trini tells them that they can leave since the team can handle the other remaining enemies. Both Rangers manage to enter the castle and quickly find the two pilots who were locked in a cell. Despite having found them, the Rangers have doubts as they are afraid that these two humans are not real due to the fact that Finster now knows how to create humans. The pilots plead with the Rangers to help them and tell them that they are real. Outside the castle, the Rangers continue in battle, and the boar monster says that he is the best wizard pig ever created. We can also see that this monster is carrying a staff that has a green stone on it, and apparently, that is what gives him power. Inside the castle, Jason and Tommy decide to free the pilots, who confess to the Rangers that Finster tortured them and was studying them to create his art, so because of this, Grace was looking for Finster. The Rangers are surprised to hear this, but at that moment Finster appears with a strange gun and shoots them all. Outside the castle, the wizard monster decides to launch an attack to freeze the Rangers, but Trini manages to deflect it and the attack is received by the other monster. After this, the Rangers realize that the power comes from the staff, so Kimberly throws an arrow at it to take it away and Zack shoots it with the power axe. In this way, the Rangers manage to defeat all the enemies outside the castle, but they can't imagine what's inside. Jason and Tommy are trapped along with the pilots in what appears to be a mass that has turned into a hard rock, while Finster begins to show them everything he has been doing. Finster spent a long time trying to create creatures disguised as humans, but since humans are very complex, it became very difficult for him to finish his project. While Finster is talking, Jason tries to reach for his blaster so he can destroy the rock until he succeeds. Jason destroys everything in order to free them, and at that moment the other Rangers also arrive, so Finster has no choice but to surrender. Grace manages to get to that strange place with part of her team, and after thanking the Rangers, she tells them that maybe she can turn that place into a refugee center. Jason then tells Grace that the pilots had said she was looking for Finster, and she clarifies that they weren't looking for Finster exactly, they just had information that a lieutenant of Rita's might still be on Earth, so they started looking. Grace takes advantage of the moment to extend an invitation to the Rangers to be part of their team, since with all the reach she has in the world, she can tip off the Rangers so they can solve other situations like these. Even though this seems like a great offer, Jason decides to turn it down and tells Grace that the Rangers are independent, plus it's not a good idea to include civilians in this. Still, Grace tells him that the invitation will always be open, and after that the Rangers say goodbye. At the command center, the Rangers use a pocket dimension so Alpha and Saba can work on trying to bring Zordon back. In the same place they hold Finster as a prisoner, who tries to persuade Saba and Alpha, but Saba orders him to shut up. Outside the pocket dimension, Jason returns to his guard post and Zack is concerned about Jason's health. Because of this, he tells the Red Ranger that they should take Grace up on her offer since he can't keep trying to do everything. Despite this, Jason doesn't want to listen and is still hopeful that Zordon will return, which is why he doesn't want to work with Grace. Zack continues to insist that they should consider Grace's offer because, if Zordon doesn't return, then all of Promethea's technology will help them find hidden missions like it did with Finster. At that moment, the alarm sounds and both Rangers begin to see on the screen the news about a monster that started as a human and then transformed. With this, the Rangers confirm that there must be more of Finster's creatures, and it will be very difficult to find them since they won't know if they are real humans or disguised monsters. In Spain, there is a man walking quietly down the street, and all around there are many people as they are in a very populated city. Suddenly, this man says that the time has come for them to meet his nightmare, and he starts to transform into a horrible monster that is a combination between a sloth and a bear. These combinations between animals are very important as this may depend on the powers and attacks used by the beast. The new monster begins to destroy the entire city and people try to run for their lives. In a coffee shop in Angel Grove is Kimberly having breakfast with her father, and she tells him that she senses something is going on as it doesn't seem like a casual breakfast. Her father confesses to her that this is true and that he simply wanted to meet with her to give her the good news that he is marrying his new bride. In past stories we had already seen that Kimberly's parents had a lot of marital problems and were always fighting, so apparently, they were already divorced. Kimberly didn't take the news about her father's remarriage very well, and even though she told him that she was happy, she doesn't really seem to be. At the same place Tommy shows up, and Kimberly's father understands that there is some kind of relationship between Tommy and Kimberly. Because of this, he invites Tommy to sit with them, but it is noticed that Tommy is a little shy. This is why Tommy declines Mr. Hart's invitation, and at that moment, Tommy and Kimberly's communicators ring, but Kim's father thinks it's cute that their watches sound the same. Earlier Billy and Tommy had spent several days on Drakkon's world, and their parents thought they were lost. When the Rangers returned from that other dimension, they teleported under a place to make people think they were trapped all those days, and the firemen were able to get them out. All that rescue had been recorded on video, and now Billy's mother is watching that video again as she can't stop remembering that horrible moment. Because of this, she is excessively worried about Billy and always gets nervous when he has to leave for somewhere. In this occasion Billy had to go out to exercise with Trini, and after having told her everything that is happening with his mother, Trini tells him that it is quite normal after he is supposed to have been lost for several days. Billy hopes that his parents can relax as he is feeling a bit pressured, but at that moment their communicators ring. Kimberly, Tommy, Billy, and Trini teleport to Spain, where the new monster was and where Jason and Zack were already there. Jason warns the Rangers that this monster started out as a human and then transformed, but there is another monster somewhere else. Billy asks about the whereabouts of the other monster and Alpha tells him it's in Toronto, so Jason asks Tommy, Kimberly, and Trini to take care of it. They quickly teleport to Toronto, but this new monster greets them with an electric shock. This new monster has parts of a raven and parts of an electrical system, but the worst part is that Finster had already warned him that someday the Rangers would arrive. In Spain, the other Rangers begin the battle with the other monster, but they quickly begin to see what the powers of this beast are. The first attack is when the monster launches a car at them, but the Rangers are almost unable to dodge it because for some reason the monster takes away their speed. The monster had been launching an attack that made the Rangers super slow, so if they can't move, then they can't dodge the blows. The beast takes advantage of this opportunity and after hitting the Rangers hard, it starts throwing things at the civilians that were around that place. In Toronto, the other Rangers continue to fight against the Crow, but they quickly realize that this monster is very powerful as no attack works. In Spain, the Rangers keep trying to attack the Sloth, but they are so slow in their movements that the monster can move their bodies as it wants. Because of this, Jason tries to attack with his sword, but the monster moves Jason's body close to Zack so that the sword is stuck in the Black Ranger's neck. Fortunately, Billy blasts Zack with the blaster so he can move them and then apologizes to both of them for doing that. Apparently, Zack's blaster shot worked for him as he now has a great idea and asks the other Rangers who are in Toronto to tell him when the Raven starts charging up with energy. Kimberly informs him that right now it is starting to charge so impressively that it looks like it will try to destroy the entire city. Since the Rangers in Spain can't move fast, Zack's idea was to teleport behind the monster to hold it down and then teleport back to Toronto along with the monster. This way all the electric attack of the Crow was received by the Sloth and due to this great attack, the monster explodes. Now there is only one left, and all the Rangers gather with their weapons to attack it. Because the Crow launched a very powerful attack, it now needs to recharge again, and the Rangers take this opportunity to attack it all together. In this manner they destroy the Raven and now both cities are safe thanks to the Power Rangers. At the command center, the Rangers start interrogating Finster and ask him about how many monsters there are. Finster only goes on to say that even he doesn't know how many there are as he spent a long time creating many of these fake humans and now, they are everywhere. Trini asks him if he has any way of tracking them to know when they will transform, but Finster says he doesn't know anything since it's a decided lack of control and that's why this is art, because it's chaotically random. Obviously, the Rangers don't agree that this is art, but Finster says that everyone has their own point of view since art is subjective. In addition to this, he also tells them that they are going to have many opportunities to see for themselves as today was only the beginning. After this interrogation, all the Rangers are reunited and Kimberly asks Saba how long until Zordon returns, but unfortunately, Saba replies that it will still take several days. Jason asks Billy if there will be any way to track these monsters, but he replies that they can only track them after they turn into beasts. Zack is still very persistent and tells Jason that they both know who is the right person who could help in this situation, but Jason is adamant that he doesn't want to involve civilians in this. Just then the alarm sounds due to someone being near the command center and the Rangers can't believe what they are seeing. The person standing at the entrance is Grace Sterling, the owner of Promethea, and she tells the Rangers that there is no time, so they must open up fast. The Rangers teleport out of the command center with their helmets on, so she doesn't recognize them, but Grace says something more impressive and that is that she says she needs to talk to Zordon. The Rangers don't understand what's going on, They don't know how she knows Zordon, and how she knows about this place. On top of this, she greets Alpha as if they have been friends for a long time and tells the Rangers that she knows everything for a simple reason. Jason asks her for that simple reason and Grace replies that she was the Red Ranger. In order to understand the story, we must first meet the Supersonic Power Rangers, a very old team that suffered a betrayal from their Green Ranger. This story is longer, but in short, this Green Ranger joined Dark Spectre and became the Psycho Green Ranger. After 100 years of this event, in 1969 people were watching a very important moment in the history of mankind, the first man to reach the moon. What no one knew was that on the moon was a ship that had crashed, and it was the Psycho Green Ranger ship. This ship was in hibernation, and because humans were nearby, the ship was able to detect them. This caused the ship to begin the protocol to wake up, and now the Psycho Green Ranger will once again be a threat after being dormant for 100 years. There are many people watching this great moment on television, and here we are shown 5 very important people in this story, which are from different places. Later we can see a woman sitting on the roof of a building in Nazada, and this woman is Grace Sterling. In this story she looks very young, as all this happened in 1969, and at that time Promethea had not yet started. Sitting on that building she starts talking to her friend and confesses that one of her biggest dreams is to travel to the moon, but because at that time women were not considered for that kind of thing, she had no hope that she was going to make it. Her friend begins to encourage her, but at that moment, Grace disappears, and basically teleports away. Zordon and Alpha had teleported her to the command center along with 4 other people. In this group there are now 2 women and 3 men, which are very different. The man in the blue clothes comes from Russia, and no one can understand what he is saying as he obviously starts speaking in Russian. The man in the orange clothes starts insulting Zordon because he thinks he was kidnapped, and all this confusion causes everyone to start arguing amongst themselves. Suddenly, the Russian starts speaking the same language as the others, and they all think he speaks the same language as them, but he tells them that he is speaking Russian. This man's name is Nikolai, and he was actually speaking Russian, but Alpha had activated the translators in the command center so they could all communicate in the same language. Then the other woman in the group asks Alpha what it is, and the man dressed as a military man, whose name is Turona, asks if it is a robot alien. Alpha replies that it is just that, and also tells her that his name is Alpha 5, but also introduces them to Zordon. Quickly Zordon begins to explain to them the purpose for which they are in the command center and tells them that the fate of planet Earth depends on them. He also tells them that 10,000 years ago a witch named Rita Repulsa was conquering the world, but he managed to stop her with the help of others and locked her in a magical makeshift prison on the moon. Since Zordon knew that someday they were going to look for her, he installed defensive cannons, and 100 years ago they had to use them. The Psycho Green Ranger, Dark Spectre's assistant, had been sent to free Rita, and when Zordon realized this, they shot his ship with cannons. Now after 100 years they realized that they never managed to destroy the ship, it just crashed and was in hibernation during all this time. During all the hibernation the ship kept it alive, and now with the arrival of humans to the moon, the ship just woke it up. Alpha 5 managed to block the ship's communication so that the Psycho Green Ranger can't communicate with Dark Spectre, but despite this he is going to try to finish the mission, and this will release the most evil entity ever seen. Zordon tells the group that they must stop the Psycho Green Ranger and that they were chosen for their passion, dedication, and determination to be the Power Rangers. Some are a little angry because they don't even know what a Power Ranger is, plus they think they should just fire the cannons again, but Alpha tells them that can't be done. Zordon explains to them that the Power Rangers are a team of elite warriors who channel the power of ancient dinosaurs to defend the world from the forces of evil. Trona feels they don't have much of a choice, but Daniel says that they are just normal people and are not warriors. This starts a small argument, but Zordon manages to catch Grace's full attention as they must go to the moon, and that is her dream. Grace quickly behaves like a leader and manages to convince everyone to accept the mission. Zordon hands out the morphers to everyone and names Grace as the team leader and the first ever Red Ranger on Earth. Everyone gets into position and Grace a little hesitantly repeats the same thing Alpha 5 said, "It's Morphin time." Everyone transforms and we can quickly see a very different team than the one we knew in 1993. Grace, being a woman, is the Red Ranger, the other woman is the Black Ranger, the Yellow and Pink Rangers are men. To better explain the position of each of them, the Black Ranger is Jamie, the Blue Ranger is Nikolai, the Russian, the Red Ranger is Grace, the Yellow Ranger is Trona, the military man, and the Pink Ranger is Daniel, who is a bit angry about getting that color. Alpha teleports the new Rangers to the moon, near the space dumpster that Rita was locked in, and they are all very shocked to be on the moon. Grace gets so excited that she starts crying, but the other Rangers start arguing over nonsense about the trips to the moon that Russia and the United States have attempted. Grace tries to calm the situation and begins to form a plan, but Nikolai doesn't want to follow the orders of a woman who also only manages a group of secretaries. The Blue Ranger feels that he can be a better leader and does not care if the Blue Head chooses her as the leader, he is going to do whatever he wants. Nikolai's plan is to hunt down the Psycho Green Ranger, and Grace decides that she is going to go along with that idea but asks him to make it a coordinated thing. Because she has a lot of knowledge about the moon, she creates a plan and tells the Blue and Black Rangers to go to a certain part of the moon to see if they can find the enemy's ship. These two Rangers leave, but when they arrive at the place it was too late because the Psycho Green Ranger was already prepared. While the two of them try to get to know each other better, the Psycho Green Ranger prepares to attack them from behind and take them by surprise. Meanwhile, the other team members continue to wait, but quickly start another argument over silly things as they are all very different and have very opposing views. At that moment, they hear the Black Ranger call for help and then they see a big explosion near that place. The Psycho Green Ranger was beating up the Rangers, and even though the Blue Ranger was able to attack him, this was not enough to stop him. The Psycho Green Ranger hits Nikolai so hard that he sends him flying far away, but Grace manages to catch him before he hits the ground, and now the Psycho Green Ranger lifts a big rock to try to crush the Black Ranger. Despite her pleading for her life, this evil Ranger shows no mercy and crushes her with that big rock. Trona and Daniel try to attack the enemy, but the enemy manages to destroy the Pink Ranger's helmet glass, which causes him to start choking. The Rangers try to help Daniel, but the Psycho Green Ranger stops them with a very powerful attack. After this, he goes in search of the dumpster to free Rita and finally finds it. Fortunately, Alpha manages to explain to the Rangers how to build the power blaster, and with this they manage to strongly attack the evil Ranger. The Rangers think they managed to destroy it and also realize that the Black Ranger and the Pink Ranger are dead. For the Blue Ranger this is something normal since he belongs to the Soviet Union, but Grace is very affected by these deaths. At that moment, a green energy begins to appear, and the Psycho Green Ranger is transformed into a giant monster. The Rangers can't believe what they are seeing, so they start running until they come across the Bandora Palace, and outside there is a giant cannon. Because of her military experience, Trona realizes that they won't get many shots with that cannon, so after Grace's words to her, the Blue Ranger decides to sacrifice his life to save the Earth. Nikolai grabs the gun and jumps towards the monster so that it swallows him. Being inside the stomach, he causes a huge explosion that destroys the monster and also ends his own life. In the command center, Trona and Grace begin to blame Zordon for not having prepared them for the mission. Zordon accepts the blame and apologizes for putting them in that position, and also says that the Rangers who died will be remembered forever. Grace is very angry as she feels that Zordon is not so sorry for what happened and tells her that they are going to fix the world with those powers. Then, Zordon disappoints them when he tells them that they are not going to keep the powers since the world is not in danger, but Grace and Trona try to explain that they could end the war. Despite this, Zordon tells them that they should be proud that they succeeded in the mission, but it is not their duty to interfere in the affairs of humanity. They both leave the command center very angry, and we can realize that Grace managed to keep the Psycho Green Ranger's sword. Now, Grace is inside the command center with all the Rangers, and something very curious is that after all the story she told them about the first team in 1969, now the Rangers no longer hide their identity from her. They are all without their helmets, and we can tell that they are very surprised with what they just learned about the terrible mission on the moon. Now all the Rangers start to ask Alpha for explanations since Zordon had a lot of time to tell them about this whole event and he never did, but Alpha answers them that it was not his duty to tell them this, it was Zordon's. He also tells them that what happened in 1969 has been one of the biggest losses they have ever had, and when Alpha starts talking about Zordon's return, Grace learns that he is gone. Grace also explains that she is not trying to cause trouble by telling them everything that happened on the moon mission, as she understands that Zordon did what he thought was best for everyone, and that is that he doesn't like to get involved in the affairs of humans. Then Trini understands that Grace created Promethea in order to help humanity by remembering those lives that were lost on the moon mission, and Grace confirms to her that she is right. Despite all this excellent life story, Tommy asks Grace what she has come for, and she tells them that the situation with Finster is getting worse, so they must all work together. Because of this, Grace asks the Rangers to accompany her to Promethea, and we finally get to see this famous place full of technology. The first thing we can notice is that Promethea is separate from everything else and is basically a small city, so it's not just a building. Grace starts showing the Rangers all the things they have in this tech city, and Billy confesses to her that he was about to have an internship in this place, but unfortunately, other things came up. Even though they are all amazed with everything they are seeing, Jason wants Grace to talk about the most important thing, but she tells him that the place is also part of the important stuff she wants to show them. After this, she takes them to another important place in Promethea, and there they meet Andrea, chief scientist of the Alien Technology Division. In this place they are all standing in front of a dark place, and behind that glass there is something very important. Grace turns on the light of that dark room, which is really a technology prison, and inside this place there is a man named Tony. Grace explains to them that Tony is a normal man who leads a simple life, and while she says all this, the man begins to scream, asking to be taken out of that place because he does not understand what is happening. Jason gets a little upset and tells Grace that he can't hold a man against his will, but Grace and Andrea prepare themselves for something important that is about to happen. This supposedly normal man transforms into a monster with 9 cat heads, and the Rangers quickly realize that he is one of Finster's monsters. Grace explains to them that in Promethea they have managed to find a way to track the monsters with an energy signal that begins to emit before they are about to transform. At that moment, Grace asks Andrea to activate the electric current, and this gives a great shock to the monster until he loses his life. The Rangers realize an important detail, and that is that this man did not know he was a monster, but the men who were with Finster did know that they were monsters. Grace surmises that Finster found a way to implant human memories in them so that this would help them to blend in with other humans before they became monsters. Even though the monster had effectively died after the electricity, it still wakes up and starts attacking everyone in the place. This monster is looking for a way to escape from that prison, and no one understands how he managed to survive after being electrocuted. The monster manages to escape from that place, but in the last image we can see something very strange, and that is that one of its heads is still lifeless. On the outside of the building there is a big explosion, and the monster is now trying to destroy everything, but the Power Rangers are ready to stop it. All of the monsters' heads have different personalities, some want love and others just want destruction. Zack manages to cut off one of those heads, but the monster is still alive and starts to launch a powerful attack. Suddenly, a door begins to open on the floor, and meanwhile, the Rangers realize that the monster is still alive since it has 9 lives, so for now they must kill it 7 more times. At that moment, Kimberly manages to launch her arrows to take another life, so now they must kill it 6 more times. The other Rangers start attacking the monster hard on different heads, but Billy has already lost count of how many times they need to kill the monster. If we go by their heads, then he only has 3 lives left, but at that moment, something very big crushes the monster and ends another one of his lives. What had stepped on the monster was a giant robot that Grace built in Promethea. Basically it's almost like having your own Megazord. We can notice that this monster has a very different style, and you can tell that it is built in a place full of human technology. After this, Grace proceeds to crush it several more times in order to finish with the last remaining lives of the monster until it is totally destroyed. Inside the warehouse where Grace keeps this giant robot, the Rangers ask her if this is a Zord, but she tells them that it really is a robot since it does not use energy from the Morphin grid. Despite all this, Jason is not convinced that it is right for Promethea to have built a giant battle robot. But even though Grace understands his point, she still tells him that at Promethea they are proactive in trying to make the world a better place in all areas. She also explains to them that after Rita hacked the Ranger Zords, they felt it was time to build a backup plan, and that's why they have the giant robot. Grace also adds that for now the important issue is the situation with Finster, so again, she offers the Rangers to all work together. Promethea is able to start tracking the monsters before they transform, but unfortunately, the transports are too slow to be able to quickly get to the places where the monsters are. Because of this, she asks the Rangers to be a part of this since they can quickly reach those places with teleportation and therefore be able to destroy those monsters before they cause a tragedy. At that moment, the Rangers receive a call from Alpha, which says that he has good news as they have managed to have a breakthrough. After this, the Rangers can hear Zordon's voice, saying that he has returned. In a place far away in space we can see a very strange bar, which seems to have been created for villains and monsters. In this place there is a being that we have never seen before, and he is drinking something special as he tells the bartender that he traveled from far away just to have that drink. Although this being tells the bartender that he has only traveled here because he is the one who best prepares this drink, the bartender tells him that it is difficult to trust him because he is the magician of deception. With this they let us know that the name of this mysterious being is the Wizard of Deception, and at that moment he hears another voice. This voice is that of Rita Repulsa, who is accompanied by her lackeys and tells the magician that it is a challenge to find him. Then she asks him if he knows who she is, but the magician replies that the important thing is that she knows who he is. Rita sought out this magician to ask him to create a magical object, and apparently it is something so strange and difficult to create that she cannot create it herself. Rita already knew what this powerful wizard wanted, and so she brought it to him, but the Wizard of Deception could tell that this was going to be very complex magic. Rita's lackeys tell her that they have searched everywhere to find someone to do this magic, but everyone told her that they had to look for the Wizard of Deception. This magician tells Rita that what she has is not going to be enough to pay for this job, and then confesses to her that he really knows her. This is why the magician asks her that the only thing Rita can give him to pay for this job is to tell him the truth, the real reason why she needs this magic item. Rita begins to tell the magician the truth and confesses that she has failed. Rita has made a terrible mistake and is afraid of what will happen if she does not get back what she has lost. Because the magician felt that she told the truth, he is now willing to create the magic object for her, so he tells Rita to go and wait for him. At the Ranger Command Center, everyone is very happy that Zordon has returned, and they begin to tell him many things that have happened in his absence. Zordon is happy to be back and explains to the Rangers that it was disorienting to be without any emotional or physical connection, so any hope of returning was just that, a hope. Even though they are all happy, they try to explain to Zordon everything that has happened, but he tells them that while he was wandering in time, he was able to see some things, plus Saga kept him informed. Because of this, Zordon tells the Rangers that he understands that they must have a lot of questions because of what happened in 1969, and says that event is something that still haunts him. Zack tells him that it doesn't explain the reasons why he didn't tell the Rangers anything, and if he doesn't trust them, then they won't be able to trust him. Zordon apologizes to the Rangers and says that he understands their opinion, as having tried to protect them from things in the past, he has been badly mistaken. Then Zordon also told them that he has some doubts about the deal they are going to have with Grace, as he understands that Promethea has too much advanced technology, and that is something strange. Billy asks Zordon if he thinks that Promethea is using the Morphin grid as a power source, and Zordon tells him that maybe they are. He then also explains that Grace wants to make the world a better place, and the problem with that is that as much as they want to shape the course of human history, the Rangers are not designed to do that, but to defend and protect. Jason disagrees with this, since Zordon has chosen humans to be Power Rangers, and humans are always looking to change the world, so he can't think that they won't use their powers to try to change everything. Zordon replies to her that the problem with what Grace is looking to do is that it can become a problem, as she is willing to take drastic measures. Saga also starts to give her opinion and basically says that decisive action definitely needs to be taken regarding Finster's monsters. Saga has an idea to be able to resolve this situation, but they still have to prepare for the worst. Jason then explains to Zordon that Grace has all the technology to be able to find the Finster's monsters, and that way they could put an end to the problem. Zordon tells him that if that is the direction he wants to go, then that is his choice, but advises him to be very careful. Now the Rangers are in Promethea, and we can see that they are all using their helmets to hide their identity. Tommy and Billy are working together, and Billy confesses to Tommy that it is very complicated to work with the helmet on, so Tommy gives him the idea of creating something that can block the security cameras. Billy is very happy with this idea, but he also tells Tommy that he can go talk to Trini and Kimberly, since they can give him more conversation. Trini and Kimberly are analyzing the body of the monster that had 9 cat heads, so they can find out more information about Finster's creations, and they both don't understand how Finster can give monsters personalities. Kimberly suggests that it's all magic, and Trini says that's precisely what scares her. The two then have a conversation about Kimberly's parents' divorce and her father's new girlfriend. She also mentions what happened with Tommy at the coffee shop since her father invited him to sit with them. In the pocket dimension, Saba tries to have a conversation with Finster to convince him to take another direction by telling him that it is going to allow him to do what any artist wants to create. Finster is confused as he has created before, but Saba clarifies that so far, he has only created what Rita has wanted and has not had the freedom to create what he wants. Saba's offer is for Finster to stay in this pocket dimension since here he will be able to create whatever he wants with almost infinite energy, but he must stop the monsters he has created. Apparently, Finster didn't like the proposal very much as he tells him that a creation is no good if it can't be appreciated, but Saba tells him that he thought art was purely about the act and not the audience. Finster tells him that not publishing your creations to an audience is not going to let you know their true value. Art is about the relationship between the creator and the audience. It is about the reaction provoked by the creation. Even though this site is awesome to be able to create anything, building just for the sake of building is boring. Besides, he can't control the monsters even if he wanted to, and the real reaction is the chaos that exists is the one you're not expecting. In Promethea, Jason is having a conversation with Grace in which she mentions that she has a lot of smart people working with her and also says that Billy is brilliant. Then they both start talking about how hard it is to be a Red Ranger and all the weight that comes with it. Jason tells her how hard it has become for him to be in that position, and Grace tells him that he is slowly going to start being able to anticipate situations so that he can better resolve crises. In addition to this, she also tells him that she will always be available to help him make the burden of being the Red Ranger lighter. At that moment, the alarm sounds and there is a person about to transform into a monster, so Jason asks all the Rangers to be ready to leave. Quickly, the Rangers teleport and Andrea is very surprised with this Ranger technology. Andrea asks Grace if this is a good start and she says yes, but then asks if the Rangers know what she is planning, but they don't know anything. Then Grace admits that when the time is perfect, they are going to find out, but for now there is a world to save. This is the final episode of the Promethea saga, and although it was a saga with little drama, it is the one that opens the way to the best Power Rangers saga of all time. The next saga is going to be the Shattered Grid, and in this last episode of Promethea we get to see how it all started. Finally, Rita arrives at her palace on the moon, but she realizes that everything has been destroyed by the Dragonzord. Despite all this destruction, Rita and her lackeys think it's not so bad, so she starts using her magic to rebuild everything. Rita has managed to make the palace look excellent, and best of all, she has her throne ready. Her lackeys quickly think that the next step is to plan a new attack, but she tells them not yet. The first task Rita wants to accomplish is to find Finster, but we all know he's in the pocket dimension of the Rangers Command Center and it's going to be impossible to get him out of there. In New York, the Rangers are fighting a new monster that Finster had built to transform from his human form to an animal-like monster. This time we can see that this monster looks like a giant sheep and has certain artifacts all over its body that seem to emit a rather loud sound. After the Rangers have defeated so many monsters, they are now starting to make jokes about the identity of this particular monster. They also want to give it a name, but Billy suggests that they should ask the monster since they almost always already have a name. This giant sheep is focused on broadcasting a message, and this message is to tell people about the reality of human conspiracies. At all times he is always repeating that they should listen to Sheeple's message, which is obviously his name. Because the Rangers want to stop this monster, the giant sheep gets angry because they think he will not be allowed to broadcast his message and attacks the Rangers with a lot of wool coming out of his body. The Rangers don't understand what is going on since obviously wool is not something that can hurt you, but what they didn't know was that this wool turns into little monster sheep that are a big army. In Promethea, Grace is overseeing the Battle of New York, and at that moment, another employee arrives to warn her that there is another monster in Vancouver. The problem with this new monster is that it has not yet transformed, and the satellites cannot pinpoint its specific location, but they manage to find an approximate location. Grace decides not to tell the Rangers anything for now since they are still in the battle in New York, so the Promethea team is going to try to take care of the Vancouver situation until the Rangers are done with the giant sheep. In the meantime, the Rangers are trying to destroy all these new little monsters, but it is a very complicated situation as the giant sheep continues to create more wool. This giant sheep uses his loud voice to order his little wool monsters to do what he wants. After trying to attack people, the monster now decides that all the wool should come back to him, and in this way, he manages to catch some people. The Rangers no longer know how to resolve this situation as they basically have to destroy an entire army, and this is very complicated. Billy quickly uses his intelligence to come up with a plan but doesn't give the Rangers much information and proceeds to call his Zord. Billy asks the Rangers to keep helping people so they can give him some time, but Jason asks him to explain the plan so they can help him better, so Billy proceeds to explain. The Blue Ranger had realized that this giant sheep uses his voice to give orders to his army, so Billy configured the Zord's audio so that when he spoke into the microphone, his voice would sound the same as the monster's voice. In this way, Billy gets the army to follow his orders, and the first thing he asks them to do is to free the people. The giant sheep can't believe what is happening, so he starts trying to stop the little monsters, but it doesn't work. After this, Billy orders the little monsters to attack him, but because he is using the voice of the giant sheep, the army attacks the monster. Billy manages to destroy the monster and at the same time destroys the army. The Rangers begin to celebrate, but quickly hear the voice of Zordon, who warns them that there is a situation developing in Vancouver and they must go now. When the Rangers arrive in Vancouver, they find that there are many police and Promethea people who have paralyzed the entire area. The people in this place are not allowed to leave on orders by the local police and basically also on orders from Grace. She had quarantined all these people with the help of the local government to scan each person and try to find the monster. Obviously, the Rangers are against all of this since Grace is holding these people against their will, but Grace defends herself by saying that this is what is necessary. After that, Jason asks Billy if he can upgrade Promethea's scanner technology to amplify the signal, but the Blue Ranger says that in order to accomplish this he must go to Promethea's. Grace gives Billy permission to enter Promethea and Trini decides to accompany him. Jason tries to make it clear to Grace that this cannot happen again, but she tells him that they must discuss all that later. In the meantime, they must take the scanners in order to end this situation quickly. In the pocket dimension of the command center, Finster begins to hear a voice and realizes it is Rita's voice. She was communicating with Finster through her magic and tells him that he has decided to waste his time playing games, but then asks him to come over right away. Even though we thought Finster had no way out of that place, he had a trick in store and used his glasses to create a portal to escape. At Promethea, Billy managed to build a better scanner and asks Trini to take him to Vancouver, but he is going to stay to build an additional scanner. After Trini leaves, Andrea starts talking to Billy, but she doesn't know his identity. She tries to find out who the Blue Ranger is and thinks that they possibly already knew each other. Within all that conversation, Billy mentions that he had noticed that a part of Promethea was consuming more energy than the other areas, and he would like to know why they need so much energy in that part. Andrea just tells him that those are just corporate secrets and that even she doesn't know everything about Promethea. In Vancouver, the Rangers are still talking about everything Grace has done, and Tommy thinks that if she did this, then she is capable of doing anything. While the Rangers are talking, we can see that Billy is walking silently through the halls of Promethea, and apparently, he wants to find out what is in that other part that is using so much energy. At the entrance of that place there are two guards who are guarding the door, and they tell Billy that even he doesn't have the authority to pass to that confidential place. Billy apologizes and walks away from the place, but in reality, he was only hiding and then teleporting into the secret place. He quickly hears a very familiar voice telling him that this is an excellent way to get through a door, and then Billy realizes that this voice is Lord Drakkon.